Gen Z, you guys are the artist generation. You guys are from about 2005 onwards. I think it ends around 2028 maybe. Yeah, you guys are the artist generation. This is the generation that comes after millennials. You guys are the most highly protected and sheltered generation. That's just a fact. You guys grew up on participation trophies. You guys also grew up during 2008 financial crisis. So you had to be a little bit more sheltered after that. That's the response that a lot of Gen X and even some millennials and boomers as well. That's the response they had. So you guys are very, very sensitive. This is true. You guys will say it yourself, but us older people, we can see it. We can see it in the culture, in your culture, and we can see it in just how you act. Like we see you every day, and you guys are very, very sensitive, very excitable. And I mean that to say that you guys, look, Gen Z is the most depressed generation. I would say they're more depressed than the millennials overall. So Gen Z is the most depressed, but they also are the most excitable. They tend to oscillate between the two very hard. You know, they will get very excited, but they will also get very depressed. You know, it's just the natural way things go. And it makes sense, because you guys grew up with the internet being dominant. Like, I grew up before the internet was very dominant. I started to get into it into my teens a little bit more so. Even later, you know, just... But you guys grew up and this shit was around all the time. So you guys really grew up on this. It's kind of all you know. So with this access to constant stimulation, it has made you guys very sensitive. Very numb, but very sensitive as well. Because you're numb in the sense that you need a lot of dopamine. You guys, well, you don't need, but your body feels that it needs all this dopamine because you guys have grown up with all this dopamine around you, you know? You got to go to McDonald's to get your Happy Meals as a child. You got access to porn as soon as you got onto the internet, basically. Watching YouTube, you got all these games that you play, like video games have gotten much more stimulating. Social media is a very big one. So you guys have grown up in this very stimulated environment while also being very protected and sheltered by the previous generation, because the Gen X, the generation right before millennials, they and millennials as well, like the older millennials, they had a big a response to all the crisis that we're going through, you know, the recession that happened in 2008, diseases, there was a bunch of fear and propaganda throughout the 2010s. So, you know, they saw the world going in a very shit direction and decided to overprotect you guys. So since you guys are overprotected, this results in, like I said, very sensitive and overexcitable people. But you guys have your own culture, you know? Like, you can see it in the humor. Like, Gen Z humor is much different than the humor of previous generations. You guys listen to much different music. You guys are, I would say, live a very different lifestyle than the previous generations. It also is very much more inside. It's very digital. It's a digital culture, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's what it is. So you guys live a very different life than a lot of people have before. And this is going to result in you guys being... This is why it's called the artist generation. You guys are going to produce the next great artists. You guys are going to produce the culture definers, you know? Like the ones that... And I'm talking pop culture. I'm not talking full, you know, worldwide culture. I'm talking pop culture here in the West. And whatever country you're in, but dominantly here in the West. I'm specifically talking about here in the West. You guys are going to produce the next, like, you know, the Beatles or like the Kanye or like Van Allen, like the type of one that's talked about forever. You guys are going to produce them because you guys have lived a very protected life of the old style, but you now have now that there's a crisis and there's this boom of technology, you guys are in this bubble of new culture that is constantly being refined and is going to propel and like define the next generations. And the generation after, this is based off of history. So the generation after you is going to be the prophet generation. That's going to be the people born 2028 or 2024 or 2028, whichever year and above. And they are going to eventually have their own culture, and you guys are going to kind of latch onto it. No, not to say that that's a bad thing, but it's just what the generation tend to do when you look at history. In the cycle, there's the hero generation, which is my generation, the millennials. We tend to push. We're called the hero generation because we tend to fight against the crisis. We are the ones that drag the world out of the crisis. And then, since you guys are right after us, you guys help us by refining and giving us numbers in order to help the world. So right now there's a whole bunch of bullshit going on, and it's up to our generation to stop that. Like all this government corruption, all this just the bullshit that goes on around the world. It's our generation that's gonna stop it. And you guys will help us by refining our tools. You guys are the artist generation. We have the ideas, we have the oomph, and you guys have the refining skills, like to help us help the plan, cover all the details. You guys, that's how it's going to be, or that's how it's been in history, so that's how I'm predicting it to be. It's honestly great that you guys are going to have your own culture, because or you kind of do already right now. Like a lot of you guys are on TikTok, YouTube. You could tell it's just you guys weren't old enough, but the content is so much different than like previous generations. So what you guys honestly have to focus on as a generation, or as an individual inside of yourself, what you have to focus on is decisiveness. A lot of you guys are indecisive because you're fucking depressed. You're always stimulated. Because you're always stimulated, you can't pinpoint on one thing, so you guys are all over the fucking place. And typically the artist generations, when they get into midlife and when they get into positions of power, that's when they become indecisive leaders. So they could lead decently well, but they're very indecisive, and you tend to postpone things until the last moment. That's not like, just work on your decisiveness, work on your anxiety, work on whatever's in you that's making you fucking, because that's really what it is. It's like your anxiety is like telling you, oh, but this, it's like, come on, bro. Work on your ability not to just react. Because the thing about Gen Z is you guys aren't very stoic. You guys move between the fucking emotions like a lot, and it's very prevalent in all your different types of cultures. So there's like, I see a lot of the gym culture with Gen Z. Like, you guys are very into fitness. But it's not fitness for your own personal benefit. Whenever I see like the videos of people talking about fitness, it's like, oh yeah, be the man that when she tells her boyfriend about he looks and then he's insecure, or like, be the woman who like, everybody wants. Like, it's just a bunch of bullshit. Like, you guys gotta not be in these mental, like, not be so emotional, because if you are so emotional and you can't control your emotions, then you could be pulled apart anywhere. You could be manipulated. If you aren't the controller of your emotions, you are susceptible to being manipulated. And you guys are being manipulated. There's an attack on the West right now. Like, the TikToks that you guys are, the fact that you guys are all on TikTok, you're getting the propaganda. Like, you're getting it to the dome piece. So you have to work on being more decisive, not being reactive. And the final point that I want to say is, you guys can't just conform. Like, what I've noticed is Gen Z is very groupthink oriented. Like, I get it. You guys look at conformity as the best way in order to survive, but it's not. Like, form your own opinions, It's just because your friends on Discord or, you know, what you see on social media says this, it doesn't mean that that's the truth. It doesn't even mean that that has to be your truth. Like, see what it is, process it, let it go through you. Don't just repeat what everybody else says. Like, an example of this is I think last year, I forget what it was for, but basically people were posting a black square on their like Instagram, and it was for something, like someone got killed or something, or like Black Lives Matter, some bullshit. And like all of Gen Z was posting, like it became a meme where like you kind of had to post it. And it's like, bro, what are we accomplishing? Like, the small things are what really define a person. So on a small level, if you are just conforming to the group, then when actual big things come, you're conforming. There's gonna be no freedom of thought. It's just conformity. You know what that leads to? That leads to bot mentality. No, I'm so serious. Like, I made that video about NPCs and whatnot, and I've thought about it more. An NPC, the bot, is just the ones who blindly follow. It's not because they are not real people. They're just the people who blindly follow. And it's still bad to call them that, but like, you're fucking bots. Like, you get programmed and then you just walk around like a droid. I'm gay. Oh, did you just say that? I have to kill you now. I have to report you. You know, it's like, stop conforming simply because it's popular. You know? You don't have to be gay. That's like, you don't have to identify as this. Like, you don't have to be a lot of these different dumb things that like is pushed on you guys, you know? Like, I'm so serious. You don't have to fucking be like a porn addict. You don't have to have a favorite porn star, you know? Like, you don't have to have all these things. You guys need to become non-conformists. Let me not say non-conformists, because then you're non-conforming just for the hell of it. But you guys must think about what opinions you paired around, because it really does matter. Because your opinions and your worldview is going to carry you into life, carry you further. And if you simply parrot what society at large says, to you, like what the news says, what social media says, like I said, you're liable to manipulation. But also in the future, when everything changes, since you haven't thought about it, you might just change just for the hell of it, just to keep up with the times. Or you might get ridiculed because you haven't kept up with the times, but you were living a false lie on that keeping up with the times. So it's like, what do you stand for? You don't stand for anything. You're just being a bot. Like, dead ass, you're just being a bot. Anyways, that's really all I had to say. I mean, I have more, but that's all I got on my notes and shit. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. Gen Z, my people, deuces.